to this webinar about Australia. The webinar title is From Beaches to Books, Your Australian Study Adventure. My co-worker and I will talk to you about Australia and why we think it's the perfect study destination.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so before we start, I would like to introduce myself a bit. My name is Lars. I'm the recruitment director at Blueberry and Beyond Abroad. I started working in the education industry over 20 years ago, but before I did that, I actually studied in the US, 3 years in Providence, Rhode Island, before I continued to do a master's degree in Sweden in international management. But anyway, I started working recruiting students from Scandinavia, which now obviously is broader, it's more than Scandinavia. But I've done so over 20 years, and I visited several partner schools in the US, in Australia, and all over the world. And one of my favorite countries is definitely Australia.
Yeah, and I can only agree. Australia is also one of my favorite countries. So my name is Victoria, and I chose to do 1 year in Australia after I finished high school. So I did some business courses at Griffith University in Gold Coast and totally fell in love with the country, the culture, the sun, and everything they had to offer. And now, 9 years later, I'm here and I work as a senior account manager and mainly talk with students about Australia as a study option. So my background is from Griffith University, and then I also visited several partner schools. And soon I'm actually going to Melbourne, so I will be back in Australia after 9 years. I'm very excited about that. And this presentation is maybe why you choose Australia. So can you tell us some facts, Lars?
Yes, about Australia. Australia is pretty far away from Europe, but it's really famous for its beaches, wildlife, and fantastic weather. But what some people might not know is that it's actually have a really high quality education system, and it actually has some of the best universities in the world. And a lot of times when you think about Australia, you think about the major cities such as Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, but there are actually so much more to see. The picture you see in the background is actually from a beach, Cottesloe Beach in Perth, Australia. And Perth is actually considered to be the loneliest city in the world because it's so far away from other cities. But anyway, about Australia, it's an island continent in the southern hemisphere, and it has a population of 26 million people. It's English speaking, but it's very multicultural, and it's considered to be one of the safest places to study in the world. Some other interesting facts about Australia is that it's actually considered to have the cleanest air in the world. And as you can see on the picture, it's a beautiful beach, and Australia actually has over 10,000 beaches. And when it comes to size, it's the 6th largest country in the world, and it's just a fantastic study destination which students really love.
I agree. And then now you know some of the facts about Australia. So you know about the beaches and those things, but why should you actually go to Australia and study? So first of all, they offer very high quality of education. So they have group of 8, which is a system of 8 schools that are very high ranked universities. But even if you don't go to a group of 8 school, for example, they hold a very high level of education for international students. So you will have a degree that will be globally recognized. And as Lars mentioned before, it is very multicultural. So you would meet students from all over the world, not only from your own country. And the community is very, very big. Like myself, I moved when I was 19, and it really felt like home, meeting all international people and not only Swedish people, which is my nationality. And you can really have a great quality of life. What I like about Australia is that they take education and work very serious. Like everyone is very dedicated, and you have a high quality of education, as I said. But you also appreciate and enjoy the great lifestyle you have with all beaches. So after school, it could be a hike, it could be a surf, it can be a dinner, it can basically be anything. So there's a lot of focus on everything else that is not involving career or chasing new goals all the time. You also have a very good quality of life. So high global ranking, good universities, strong student support, And also one good fact is that you can actually work, and Lars will tell us a bit more about that later. But it's very easy to make some extra money, and the minimum wage is quite high. So as a student, you can work in customer support, in a cafe, in a store to make some extra money while studying. And I already touched a bit on the student life, but I think it's nice to highlight it a bit more. Sometimes when students think about good student life, we think about the US, for example. So I really think we should talk higher about Australia as well. So there's also a lot of clubs, activities, and sports on campus. So when you go to orientation week, they have all these small hubs that will promote the different societies you can join. And it can be anything from chess club, hiking, business club, it can be anything. So there's a lot to engage in as a student. And then you also have very flexible accommodation options. So most schools offer on-campus accommodation, which we'll also talk a little bit about later. But then the whole roommate culture in Australia is very big. So the Australians doesn't really live at home. They usually live with friends or other people who are studying or working. So people live together, which creates a very nice community and makes you feel very included. And if you like to be outdoors and be active, it's a perfect place to be as a student. And then you also feel very, very safe, I would say. I felt very safe going when I was younger, and I still feel safe there today.
Okay, a little bit about how to get to Australia. I mean, first of all, you have to apply and you have to be accepted and so on. But once you've been accepted, you have to have a student visa. This requires basically almost all countries, apart from obviously if you're from Australia or if you're from New Zealand. But technically, how the visa application is actually quite easy. You do it online. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's quite a high visa fee. It's 2,000 Australian dollars, which would equal around 1,300 US dollars. But you do it online. They ask you tons of questions, but it takes you maybe about 45 minutes to 60 minutes to finish. And you also have to provide a financial proof and something called a GTE statement. The GTE statement is basically where you explain why you want to go to Australia, why you want to study in Australia, what your plans are afterwards, and so on. Some benefits with the student visa is that family actually can join. You obviously then need to provide more financial proof, but it only takes about 4 weeks to get a visa approved. And once approved, you're ready for your Australian adventure.
Yay.
And something that actually Victoria touched upon. By the way, Victoria, did you work while you were in Australia?
Work while I was studying. So I worked in a restaurant and made some extra money for travels. So that was perfect. And I think it's very common among international students. So it's a great flexibility.
I agree. And compared to some countries, you technically cannot work as a student or as a visiting student and so on. But in once you have your visa approved, that's actually something of it's a study visa, but it allows you to work 48 hours per fortnight during semester. And technically that is, so if you work 30 hours one week, you can only work 18 hours the next week and so on. But during holidays, there's unlimited hours during holidays. You can work as much as you want. My recommendation would be to at least take a little bit of holiday as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the opportunity to work and to save up some money. And as I think for most students, even in your home country, the most common jobs are cafes, retail, tutoring, hospitality, and there's also plenty of work on campus if you want to. But I mean, this not, we have had students who worked in banks and financial institutes and other things as well. So it's not, but you have to be, at least in the first year, I think you have to take like a normal student job, basically. And a little bit what the benefit gives you is it gives you experience, you earn money, you improve your English, and I think you also get to see more of the traditional day-to-day lifestyle among Australians and so on. And while this is quite good, it's also like going into the next slide. Victoria, if you want to do the next slide.
Yeah, here we go.
If you also start working part-time somewhere, you actually have, when you study in Australia, a lot of career opportunities after graduation. This is not only if you study in Australia for 1 semester or 2 semesters and so on, but if you do a bachelor's degree or a 2-year master's degree or a PhD, you actually can apply for something called the post-study work visa. And with this post-study work visa, you can actually stay on and work for 2 to 4 years after graduation. There have been students who actually started with a post-study work visa, then applied for citizenship and got it. But that's not a guarantee or anything. There's also a few skilled migration pathways, which is something that if you educate yourself in Australia, for example, in nursing, you will benefit from that because you will definitely get a job afterwards. And there is a high demand fields in IT, engineering, some healthcare related subjects like nursing, education, and so on. So if you study any of those fields, it will be a higher chance of you to actually stay in Australia and work. But what's also really good, and I think Victoria mentioned this a bit as well, is that the universities do provide a lot of career support and networking. You also have in a lot of fields, you also have the opportunity to do internship while you're studying. And I mean, since there are so many activities on campus, a lot of these activities can sometimes be sponsored by companies and so on, which actually makes you the networking quite valuable. So I think Australian is a great study destination if you think you might want to stay and continue to work afterwards, after you graduate.
I agree. And back to a bit more, if you're tempted to go after the facts and you can actually see how it's doable and actually possible for you to study in Australia, I touched a bit on accommodation before. So myself, when I studied in Australia, I wanted to live very close to the beach. So I choose to not stay on the campus accommodation. And you have, of course, the option to also live on campus. And it's also a few benefits. I would say it's a very good start if you never lived abroad before, for example, because you will actually live with other Australian and international students in a shared flat, for example, that the school is arranging. And you have close to all the student life, more activities, and also close to your classes if you like to sleep in, for example. And if you choose the off-campus accommodation like I did, you have a bit more freedom to choose where you want to live. So I also think that could be a good option for some students, or if you start with campus accommodation first and then you move on to live off campus afterwards. And it's pretty easy to find friends and roommates to share with. In general, to find accommodation, it does require that you have a look and search for what you want, but finding other students to live with is quite easy in Australia. If you prefer homestay, that is also a very good experience if you want to live the true Aussie lifestyle, because that will mean that you would actually live in a room with an Australian family. So 3 good options for accommodations, and then you can tailor it towards what would suit you best. And then regarding cost, so in Australia, it's very common that you would pay weekly. It can also be good to keep in mind. And in bigger cities, you would obviously have some more expenses towards your accommodation. And if you choose a smaller city, it will usually be cheaper. But I would say sharing accommodation is a very fun part of being a student and very, very common for most people. And how to apply. So that's why we exist, I would say, and why we are here today. So that's the main part of what we do every day. So in our roles, we work a lot with counseling sessions with students. So that means we will have a one-on-one and we will go through your needs, where you want to go, financial factors, and all the good facts you need to know about the visa and those things. And then we will help you to choose the study destination and university that would suit you the best. And if you decide to apply, you will get your own personal person that will help you to prepare all the documents, your transcripts, English tests, if you need any letters of recommendation or a motivational letter. So you will get support through the whole process. And then you will also get helped how to apply for your student visa. And then I would say it's basically time to do your research and prepare for your arrival to whatever city you decided for.
So it also comes down a bit to the question is, what can I study in Australia and what can I do? But before I go into the subjects, I would just like to say what normally students choose to study, or how long they are in Australia and so on. And a big majority of the students actually choose to go only for 1 or 2 semesters. It's called something study abroad. It's basically where you pick subjects by yourself, and you normally study 4 subjects for 1 semester. And you can do that as a gap year student, or you can do it as a university student, taking the credit back to your home university. So that is something really common. So not everyone who goes to Australia actually goes for a full degree. So you could definitely, if you just want to go for a semester or 2 semesters, that's totally fine. Almost all Australian universities have this as an option. What you could do more is that you also could choose one subject like social media, and you could do a diploma. Normally a diploma is a 1-year study where you basically study more, everything is related into one subject. Then after that, we also do have the normal bachelor's degree. Normally it's 3 years long in Australia. However, there are a few subjects, sometimes within engineering and so on, that can actually be a 4-year bachelor's degree. And if you already have done a bachelor's degree earlier, you have the opportunity to do a master's degree, which is normally 1 to 2 years. Or if you already have a master's degree, there's also an opportunity to do a PhD in Australia. We do also offer, or some of the universities that we do work with also offer language programs. But when it comes to subjects, basically you can study whatever you want in Australia. As you see on this slide, basically it's everything from business, finance, to AI, to engineering, to photography, to design, and so on. So it's a lot of different subjects to study. And the majority of the universities are actually really big and have a lot of different faculties, so you can choose from wide range of areas and subjects. Few recommendations though is that a lot of times it's you have to think of, when it comes to law, for example, you have to make sure that the law degree is accredited in your home country, and same with medicine and a few other health related subjects. Apart from that, I think like business, engineering, and so on, definitely will be valid in your home countries. Okay, Victoria, I think we're ready for the next slide.
We are very good options for a lot of students. So what we usually find when we talk with students is that it can sometimes be very overwhelming because you have a lot of options. And actually, a lot of people haven't been to Australia because it's quite far away for some people, but it is an amazing country and you just need to find your place. So on the next few slides, we just want to highlight a couple of schools to give you an overview examples of what the universities look like. And they are quite different. So I think it's easy to find something that will suits the students' personal needs. And the first one is Bond University, that is located in Gold Coast, where I also did my studies. And it's a university, but it's a lot smaller than most of the Australian universities. So they have about 4,000 to 5,000 students, and they don't want to be bigger. That is kind of like how they work. They don't want to have more students. That's the amount they want to work with. And that means that you would have smaller class sizes. So usually at Bond, they have about 11 to 12 students in each class. And when you walk around campus, the professors and also the other students, they will know your name and say hi to you. So it's a very nice familiar feeling at the campus. And they also strongly emphasize on the employability and their international diversity. And then, according to me, you have the perfect lifestyle. They sometimes say that Gold Coast is like Australia's Miami. So you have these like big skyscrapers, as you can see in the background. And then you have the campus more on the in a smaller area where you have a lot of nature and trees and the lake. So it's a very beautiful experience where you both have the big city lifestyle and also nature just around the corner, but it's not as big as, for example, Sydney. And Bond is a very beautiful school, as you can see. I even got told, I don't know if that's true, Lars, maybe you can fact check me, but that people actually get married on their campus.
It is true.
So then they will be in this, yeah.
It is
So yeah, that says it all, I think. But yeah, so that's one different kind of style of university compared to some others, and good for students who prefer like smaller classes and maybe more personal education.
And now we come to something that is probably somewhat of the opposite of Bonn, not when it comes to quality of education, but when it comes to size. This is Adelaide University, and it's actually the third oldest university in Australia. And actually, there were two universities in Adelaide, which is, by the way, considered to be a great city. It's 1.4 million the population, but it only takes about 20 minutes to walk from one side of the city to the other one. But anyway, it was actually two universities who recently decided to combine into one university, and they became Adelaide University. It was University of Adelaide, who was the third oldest university in Australia, and University of South Australia, who now became Adelaide University. And it became quite big, so it's a bit over 70,000 students studying at Adelaide University, and it's a leading university in science, technology, and innovation. And it is considered to be one of the top institutions in Australia and globally as well. And what's really, really good about Adelaide itself is that it's ranked as one of the most livable and affordable major cities with good infrastructure and green spaces. I know that Victoria earlier talked a little bit about it being more expensive in the bigger cities. This is one of the less expensive cities in Australia. So basically rents are lower, a little bit prices overall in stores are lower and so on. So this could definitely be a great option if you want to be in a city, but you want to be close to the beach and you want to attend one of those really big size universities. I mean, from time to time, there will be classes where you're only 15, 20 people at Adelaide University, but a lot of times it's also lectures maybe containing 300 students. So it is really a different vibe compared to Bond University, who's much smaller and more private, I would say.
Mhm. And University of the Sunshine Coast is a bit in between, I would say. Not a small university, not a big university. It's located very beautiful in Sunshine Coast. So Brisbane is the third largest city in Australia, and Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast will be kind of on each side. And they are very touristy during the summer because they have amazing beaches and a lot to see. So Sunshine Coast is also quite small, I would say. So that's also very good for students who wants to have maybe a bike instead of taking a car, for example. You can walk everywhere. And this university is quite young, but also very modern. And the cool thing here, I would say, and I heard it from a trustful source, a previous colleague of ours did her bachelor here, and they would have kangaroos on campus. I think I haven't heard that for any other university so far. So that's also very cool that you get the mix, but you also really get the nature that Australia has to offer. So I would say this is a good example of a school where you can have the high quality of education, and then you would still have the Australian nature as your backyard, basically. So also very, very cool option for some students who are looking for that experience.
And then we have University of Newcastle, who's a mid-sized university in Australia. It's located in New South Wales, and when people think about New South Wales, they often think about Sydney because that's the biggest city in Australia. But the second biggest city in New South Wales is actually in Newcastle, and in the past it used to be a large coal exporting area in Australia, but now it more focus on innovation, education, and the health industries and creative industries as well. It's about located about a 2.5 hours drive from Sydney, and it's a great university that has a lot of different subjects and a lot of different degrees. It also gives you a little bit more than maybe the traditional academic universities in Australia. It also gives a strong focus on industry partnerships and regional impact. So a lot of times you do your studies, you have a project with a business in Newcastle, which makes you connect to the industry quite good. And that's why they're very famous for the graduate employability. and also a bit more practical learning compared to just reading books, because you do real life projects and everything. The city itself is not that big. It has 600,000 people, but it's also, nature is just around the door, and it's surrounded by some of Australia's most beautiful beaches, and it's considered to be one of Australia's friendliest city.
Cool. And I'm back to Queensland, which is my area of Australia that I really enjoy. And in Brisbane, you have the third biggest city, and there we have Queensland University of Technology, and it's located in Brisbane, as I said, which is the third biggest city in Australia. And this is a very cool city, I would say. It's quite common for people who lived or studied in Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast, for example, to move to Brisbane after they finish their studies, because it's a lot bigger city with a lot of opportunities after you graduate, for example. But you could also choose to go to university here, like, for example, QUT, which I'm talking about. And Brisbane is very sunny, like the rest of the coast for sure. It's a very friendly mix. You have the lifestyle and the outdoor experience. It's not really that close to the sea as some other universities we work with. They do have Brisbane River, which you will see all across the city, so it's very beautiful. And then you also have the big city beach, which is called South Bank. So there you have like proper sand and a fake beach, basically, which is a big pool. So you can also have that experience. And then you're very close to Gold Coast, for example, or Sunshine Coast. And this is quite a large university as well, with a very good location in the central Brisbane. And in my opinion, they also are a bit thinking outside of the box. I know they have like a center for e-gaming, for example, esports. So they have some very cool and different degrees among these more common ones. And they're also very connected to the industry. So that could also be useful if you want to apply for internship or jobs. So also a bit different than the other ones we talked about, but a very cool experience and a young modern university, I would say.
And Victoria, did you know, by the way, that Brisbane is going to host the Olympics in 2032?
No way. How
Yeah.
cool. That must
So
create a lot
if
of internship
yeah, a
opportunities.
lot of internship, and I think part-time jobs will be created if you go to Brisbane in the near future.
Yeah.
But yeah, but anyway, I'm also going to do one last university option that we think is great actually in Australia, and it's Edith Cowan University. And Edith Cowan University is actually located in Perth, which I think I maybe mentioned it earlier, that it's considered to be the loneliest city in the world, because it's so far away from any other major cities. Basically, it's at the west coast of Australia, and I've been to Perth, and I think a lot of people actually loves it. It's a great atmosphere. It's a beautiful city, and it actually happens a lot of events going on there and everything. So it's a major city. I think it has about 2 million people, and it has all the restaurants and everything you need. But it's also so close to nature, and as a lot of the universities are. And outside of Perth is there an island actually called the Rottnest Island, which is quite interesting. And they have the animal called the quokka. I think, I don't know if it looks maybe a bit like a hamster, but you see, if you go online, you see a lot of people doing selfies with a quokka on Rottnest Island. But anyway, it's actually the sunny capital city in Australia, Perth, and it's ranked as one as the most livable cities in the world, actually. And what about the university itself, Edith Cowan University? It's actually just about to open up a new downtown campus in the center of Perth, but they also have a campus about 20 minutes north of Perth, the Joondalup campus. So you can actually do classes at both campuses. But this new one, the ECU City campus, will all be brand new in 2026, and it will open. So I really hope that I can go and visit that campus quite soon. But they do also offer a wide range of courses across all schools. And what's really good, especially with Edith Cowan University, I think for a semester students, or if you go there for 1 year, actually their price is quite discounted, so you won't have to pay as much as you do as at most other universities. And I think Perth gives you the perfect chance to experience Australia up close, even if you're on the west coast of Australia. And I
Okay,
think,
so yep,
yeah,
go
I
ahead
think,
with the summary.
yeah, summary, yeah, I think we talked about a few universities and why all, but I think both me and Victoria really agrees that Australia is probably the one of the coolest place to study in the world. I mean, as I mentioned in the start, I studied in the US because I was so set on the US, but I don't regret it, but I strongly regret that I didn't even think about Australia at that time, because Australia has world-class education. It's very diverse and it's a very welcoming environment. For me, as a Swedish person, I almost felt overwhelmed when I've been there. People talk to you at
Mm.
the bus stop. They ask you questions, and they do. In Sweden, we don't do that much. And I do think that I have a really exciting student life, and it's very inclusive. They include everyone, no matter where you're from, and no matter what culture you're from. And I think it has to do because Australia is built on so many different cultures. So it's very friendly, and you have the great support from the universities, high quality education, and they also help you with work and career opportunities. So we think this is probably one of the best study destinations in the entire world. I guess you agree, Victoria.
I totally agree. I don't regret it a second, and I will go back any day for sure.
Yeah. All
And
right.
yeah, you can always tag along on social media and the website, and why not book a call with me or Lars to discuss it further. So yeah, definitely worth considering for your future studies.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening to us today.
Thank you.
Bye. Ah, ja, det...
Nu ska jag stoppa.